My name is Alexei Voronov. I'm a journalist. For more than 10 years, I've been gathering materials about one of the darkest and most mysterious stories of the Soviet era, the Dyatlov Pass tragedy. I was born 20 years after the events, but I first heard of them in my childhood from my grandfather, a geologist. He was part of the search party that discovered the first body. He rarely spoke about it. Only once, while deeply drunk, did he say, "We didn't find people, Lyosha. We found fear. It lived there. And maybe it still does." Back then, I didn't understand. Now, I understand all too well. In January 1959, 9 students and graduates of the Ural Polytechnic Institute set off on a ski trek across the Northern Urals. Their goal, to reach Mount Otorten. The name, in the Mansi language, means, "Don't go there." I found an old registry of hiking groups, carefully wrapped in cloth and forgotten in the UPI archives. The dispatcher's handwriting. Dyatlov Group. Difficulty Category 2. 10 people. Experience confirmed. Departure date, January 23rd. Later, there would be only 9. One would return. The rest would remain in the snow forever. Igor Dyatlov, the leader. Just 23 years old, but in photos he looks older. A tense gaze, a confident stance. Built homemade radios, sketched tent diagrams. Responsibility was more than a word for him. It was a belief. Zinaida Kolmogorova, a girl with a strong spirit. Laughs in photos, but writes in her diary. A strange feeling, as if we're not going into the mountains, but deeper into ourselves. Everything is getting quieter. Yuri Doroshenko, strong, fearless. In a past hike, he once fought off a bear barehanded. Ludmila Dubinina, strict, rational. Her notes would later become a key to understanding what happened. The others, just as passionate, just as alive. In the photographs, they still don't know they are approaching a place that would change their fate, and mine. I found their film rolls. Developed back in 1959, but the copies were lost. Now they lie before me, faces in black and white, snowdrifts, campfires, skis, and one photo I can't explain. In it, a silhouette. Human? Possibly. In the distance, at the forest's edge. None of the group mentioned encountering other tourists. I showed the image to a photo analysis expert. The shadow is too elongated. The proportions don't match. It looks like not a person. Or maybe a person distorted by perspective. But what was this figure, if not part of the group, doing on a remote snowy trail in the middle of the Ural wilderness? From Dyatlov's diary. The terrain is becoming harsh. Wind bites the face, snow falls horizontally. We decide to ascend the slope of Koletsayakol to save a day. Tomorrow will be hard. This was a mistake. They could have descended into the forest below, where the wind was calmer. But they chose to camp on the slope, exposed to all the elements. I found an entry in Zolotaryov's journal. It wasn't included in the official reports. I'm not sure this mountain is safe. I feel a gaze, I don't know whose. Locals said, there are spirits of the air here. I hope they were joking. Semyon was the oldest, a veteran, and, according to rumors, a former military intelligence officer. What did he know? Only one short entry was made in the diaries that day. The weather worsened, visibility was almost zero. They pitched their tent and sewed the entrance shut. Photos taken inside the tent show them settling in for the night, eating, reading, laughing. None of them knew it would be their last night. Then only footprints in the snow, a torn tent, bodies scattered across the slope. They didn't return by February 12th. At first, no one panicked. Then the parents raised the alarm. The search began on February 20th. First, they found the tent. It had been slashed from the inside. Clothes left behind. Belongings untouched. Around it, barefoot prints, leading down toward the forest. Some bodies were discovered kilometers away, half naked, with fractures that couldn't be caused by falling. One girl was missing her tongue. February 20th, 1959. The first search team departs from Sverdlovsk. Pilots, volunteers, students, instructors. No one says it aloud, but everyone senses it. The Dyatlov group is likely dead. The search was hampered by blizzards. Visibility, almost zero. The Ospia River was buried under snow. Only on February 26th did they discover the tent on the eastern slope of Kholit Syakhl. The man who saw it first couldn't hold back a curse. It was tilted, half covered in snow, slashed with a knife. From the inside, it didn't make sense. Note from instructor Maslenikov's personal notebook. I found archival photos of the tent, torn fabric, snow inside, remnants of food, storm jackets, 2 flashlights, one of which was still on when discovered. Someone had cut the tent open from the inside, seemingly in panic. Why didn't they just use the entrance? Footprints led downhill, barefoot, orderly, as if the people weren't running, but walking in silent agreement. The tracks faded near the edge of the forest. 1.5 kilometers from the tent, they found the first horror. Beneath a tall cedar, its branches broken 4 to 5 meters high, lay Yuri Krivonishenko and Yuri Doroshenko. Half-naked, barefoot. Their bodies, blackened by cold, marked by burns. Beneath the tree, traces of a fire. Charcoal. Scorched branches. They had tried to stay warm. Someone had climbed the tree, possibly to spot the tent, or to escape something. Nearby were scraps of clothing, but not theirs. 3 more were found on the route back to the tent. Igor Dyatlov, face down, fists clenched. Died of hypothermia, but appeared to have fought till the end. Zinaida Kolmogorova, signs of struggle, abrasions, blood on her face. Rustam Slobodin, traumatic brain injury. Forensics later stated, the blow was severe, but not fatal, had someone helped him. The bodies were discovered at different points, but all were headed back toward the tent, as if they were trying to return. Only in May, when the snow began to melt, were the remaining 4 discovered. Ludmila Dubinina, missing eyes and tongue. Her ribcage was crushed inward, as if by a massive force. Semyon Zolotaryov, broken ribs, dislocated shoulder. In his pocket, a notebook. Alexander Kolevitov and Nikolai Thibault-Brignol, also with skull injuries. One of them with trauma resembling being hit by a car. Forensic experts concluded, such injuries could not have been caused by a fall. The absence of external skin damage indicates the application of immense pressure without sharp impact. Some of the hikers' clothes, especially Zolotaryov's and Dubinina's, showed elevated levels of radiation. Investigator Lev Ivanov, who led the case, later wrote in his memoirs, I felt I wasn't allowed to say what I truly thought. There was pressure, strange phone calls. I was asked to close the case without further clarification. He hinted that the military was involved, but officially, the case concluded with the statement, the cause of death was a spontaneous force of nature beyond human control. The official reports are dry, but between the lines, you read something else. Here's what the rescuers discussed among themselves. A recording survived on a tape that miraculously wasn't destroyed. Why did they go out barefoot? What could scare them so much they'd cut open the tent? Why was Luda missing her tongue? Who was in those photographs? That wasn't an avalanche, you understand? Working theories included snow slab/avalanche, the official explanation. But the tent was on a slope with no signs of avalanche activity. Conflict within the group, not supported. No mention in diaries, no signs of such violence. In military testing, the area may have been used for RDS, nuclear, or phosphorus charge testing. UFOs/paranormal forces, Ivanov admitted in the 1990s that he had considered the UFO hypothesis. But back then, they would have chopped off my head if I wrote that in the report. The local indigenous Mansi people call the mountain Kholit Syakhl. In their language, it means mountain of the dead. I spoke with an elder living by the Lozva River. He was reluctant to answer. After a long silence, he said, "We don't go there. That place is where the wind talks to the souls. And those who hear it don't return." Near the cedar tree, carved into a nearby tree trunk, were strange symbols. Investigators dismissed them as children's drawings, but they matched traditional Mansi warning signs exactly. Lev Nikitic Ivanov, prosecutor and forensic investigator assigned to the Dyatlov case. A man with a flawless reputation, a veteran of the Great Patriotic War. He was the first to ask the question, what don't we know, or what aren't we allowed to know? In internal memos, later declassified in the 1990s, he wrote, I cannot ignore the facts. Radiation, the mismatch of injuries, the illogical actions of the group, strange testimonies. A month after the investigation began, he received a phone call from Moscow. He never said who it was. After that, Ivanov stopped mentioning radiation. The figures seen on the film. Witnesses who heard a strange hum over the pass. Any theory involving UFOs or weapons. Later, in a 1991 interview, he admitted, yes, I believed it could have been something unearthly. But back then, no one would have let me say that. We were trained. Everything must be logical. And this wasn't. I uncovered unpublished pages from Semyon Zolotaryov's diary. They had been passed to a relative of his, then vanished. A few surfaced on a closed forum for former military mountaineers in 2011. One page in Zolotaryov's handwriting. We heard a low howling. It didn't come from the sky. It came from inside the mountain. Luda said nothing, but her eyes were full of fear. She feels things before the rest of us. Another entry. I woke up at night. The tent was intact, but someone was standing behind it. I thought it was the wind, but the figure didn't move. Igor was the first to get up, then we all did. I don't know why we started cutting the fabric. It was instinct. I screamed, but without sound. In March 1959, Mi-4 pilot Captain Yevgeny Kozlov was conducting aerial surveys. His task, search for signs of campfires, tents, or bodies from the air. He saw glowing rings above the slope. At first, he assumed sun glare. But the co-pilot saw them too, at night. In the pilot's report was a line. Luminous objects, stationary, yellowish glow. One ascends vertically and disappears. That report vanished. A copy survived in Kozlov's personal notes, discovered by his son after his death. His son gave it to me, saying, my father never spoke of it until the end. He'd say, we didn't kill those kids. But we knew what did. From March to May 1959, the Kolet-Syakhl area was declared a restricted zone, officially due to military exercises. However, no such exercises were held there before or after. MGB agents, the future KGB, accompanied investigators but never explained their presence. According to one rescuer, Alexander T., a plainclothes man approached them and said, you saw an avalanche. Understood? Forget everything else, or you'll regret it. Among the photos taken by the group is the mysterious frame number 34. It's heavily overexposed, yet a bright light can be seen in the upper left corner. It wasn't the camera's flash, it was a mechanical device. Experts disagreed. Some say it may be a missile launch. Others, a detonation flash. Others still, just a photographic defect. But in the background, snow. Which means the photo was taken at night. And the group was outside when it happened, just before the tent was abandoned. The more I read her diary, the more I felt it. Ludmila Dubinina sensed something before the others. Her notes, precise, sharp, almost prophetic. The wind here is different. It feels like it's inside you. I feel like someone's counting us. I'm not the only one who sees it, but no one wants to say it out loud. Later, in Zenaida's diary, I found this. Luda woke up screaming at night. She said, he's already here. Didn't say who. We thought it was just a nightmare. I've conducted dozens of interviews, combed through hundreds of pages. And every time, I hit the same contradictions. Avalanche? No signs of one. A military? Too clean, but too coordinated. Group conflict? No motive. No signs of a fight. Irradiation? Yes. But why only some? Is psychosis? All at once? All to the point of death? UFO? No proof. But too many coincidences. There's one more theory. It sounds insane, but I heard it from a Mansi shaman. This is a place where paths cross, where time breaks. Sometimes, a person can step into where they were never meant to be. And then snow is not just snow, and fear is not just a feeling. Spring 2024. More than 65 years have passed since the tragedy. With a backpack and a camera, I walk the same path the Dyatlov group once did. The Dyatlov Pass is cold, even in early summer. The wind cuts to the bone. All around, just pine trees, snow in the shade, and the sense of something unseen. Yuri Yudin, the only survivor of the Dyatlov group. In 1959, illness forced him to turn back early. He rarely spoke of what happened, but now, nearly 90 years old, he's ready to share. We were young, naive, he says quietly. I saw something no one else did. The wind up there, it's alive. It whispers and calls. No one can resist it. Yudin insists that something invisible followed them, and it wasn't an avalanche or an accident. In a small town, I meet Sergei, a former soldier who participated in the initial search. He tells me, when we found the tents and bodies, something felt wrong. Not just the cold and the snow. It was like someone tried to hide the truth. We were ordered to stay silent. According to him, secret weapons tests had taken place near the pass, involving infrasound and psychological manipulation. On the final night, I returned to the large cedar tree, where the first bodies were found. Stars obscured by clouds. Then, I hear a deep hum, just as Yudin and Zolotaryov described. The silence breaks with a strange rustling, as if the earth itself is breathing. I see a light, very faint, bluish. It moves around the trunk. Time seems to slow. And in that moment I realize, I am not alone here. Beneath the tree roots, I discover a small metal box. It's sealed shut, rimmed with frost. Inside, old notes, photographs, and schematics for a device resembling a hybrid between a radio transmitter and an infrasound generator. One photograph shows a group resembling Dyatlov's team, but beside them stand men in military uniforms, holding unknown instruments. The documents mention Project Northern Wind, a classified test of psychoacoustic weaponry. Weapons capable of inducing fear, panic, even death through internal trauma. It's likely the Dyatlov group accidentally wandered into the test zone. Dyatlov Pass isn't just a site of tragedy. It's a place where natural forces and human experiments intersect, where fear and the unknown weave their own narrative. A story that still raises questions. I return from the trek with reverence and unease. Some secrets are better left buried in the snows of Dyatlov.